Well, we are now about 6 months out from the 2026 FIFA World Cup, and as Vancouver prepares to host 7 matches at that tournament, some changes are already showing up around the city. Now, signs posted in downtown Vancouver are warning about new temporary surveillance cameras being installed at certain locations. The Vancouver Host Committee says the cameras are a FIFA requirement and strictly about public safety, they say. But some legal experts are raising concerns. The CBC's Lawrence Watt has been looking into this. He is, of course, the director of this program. He is also the co-producer of The Pitch, Vancouver's Road to the 2026 World Cup, a special series we're running up until the World Cup arrives in town. Good morning to you, Lawrence.
Stephen, good morning.
First off, just tell us about these cameras because, you've given me the pictures and I posted a couple of your pictures of the signs and I posted a couple of shots to Blue Sky. What is happening exactly with these?
Right. Well, first, we need to begin by thanking our colleague Margaret Gallagher, the host of North by Northwest. She was out last week and she noticed 2 blue city signs posted up by Dunsmuir and Beatty Street. That's the intersection by the Stadium Chinatown SkyTrain station. The signs warn of new surveillance cameras being installed for the 2026 FIFA World Cup. And so I got these pictures from Margaret and I reached out to the Vancouver Host Committee. They got back to me and confirmed that there will be roughly 200 new temporary CCTV cameras installed for the competition. The cameras will only be set up in areas related to World Cup activities, including around BC Place, training sites, and the FIFA Fan Festival at the PNE. The cameras are being installed now for testing, but they won't be fully operational until the World Cup begins. Now, the host committee says these cameras will be used strictly for public safety and that all of them will be removed once the tournament ends, and footage captured by these cameras will be shared as needed with FIFA and security contractors. And that is something, Stephen, that legal experts are expressing some concern about.
Right. And tell me about that. What do we know then about how that footage is going to be stored and how it'll be used?
Well, the host committee insists that access to this footage will be restricted to authorized personnel in accordance with strict protocols and in line with city policy and privacy law. But still, there's questions around what happens when that footage is shared beyond the city. Where does it go? What's done with it? How long is it stored? Ashlyn Jackson is Policy Staff Counsel with the BC Civil Liberties Association. I asked them about this. Take a listen.
FIFA is not a Canadian public body. Security contractors, they may or may not be based inside of Canada. Hopefully they are. Our privacy legislation and cybersecurity in general, we're very sensitive to when data moves outside of the boundaries of Canada because other jurisdictions have less privacy protective legislation than we do.
Another thing Jackson notes is the quality of the footage collected in public spaces these days. Cameras today can collect very sensitive personal information. You think of generative AI, they can zoom in closely, they can pick up biometric information, potentially audio as well. So again, to reiterate, the city maintains that use and access to footage will follow city policies and privacy law, but they did not clarify which security contractors the footage might be shared with.
Okay. And so cities, though, always ramp up security for major events. We saw it here during the 2010 Olympics, and the World Cup does bring huge crowds. Isn't additional security expected?
You're right. The province expects 350,000 people to visit BC Place next summer. It's expected to be very busy. Streets downtown will be crowded. Finding a table on the restaurant patio could become a competitive sport on its own. But you're right, it is not unusual for cities to upgrade security at big events. Think of Paris at the 2024 Olympics. The French expanded their surveillance powers. In London at the 2012 Olympics, thousands of extra CCTV cameras were installed. The Brits even installed missile defense systems on some residential buildings during the games, but that's another story. Here in Vancouver, nearly 1,000 security cameras were turned on to monitor crowds at the 2010 Winter Olympics. But what's different this time is that Vancouver has signed a detailed agreement with FIFA. That agreement commits the city to following specific rules, including what is allowed in public spaces. Now, Kristen Thomason is an associate professor in the Faculty of Law at the University of Windsor, and she says additional surveillance could influence everyday behavior in the city.
In the spaces in which these cameras are operating, people will be expected to behave in a way that FIFA is designating, in a way that the city is designating. And I think that that also has an impact of privatizing those public spaces. You can't just go into those spaces and do all wide range of public activities. This connects with some of the other bylaws that the city is passing as well in terms of controlling what can happen in these spaces. It's really concerning to me that an international sporting organization can dictate what people in Vancouver can do in their public and shared spaces. It's really turning that into a FIFA space.
So last month, Stephen, Vancouver City Council approved a temporary bylaw to amend several rules for the World Cup. That bylaw imposes temporary restrictions on street vending, street entertainment, and unapproved advertising materials, among some other changes as well. People who fail to comply could face some quite serious consequences, ticket fines of up to $1,000. And these changes will be in effect for a 2-kilometer radius around BC Place and around the FIFA Fan Festival located at the P&E, the same areas where these new cameras will be installed. And that bylaw, Stephen, is set to take effect for a 9-week period beginning on May 13th next year.
And these surveillance cameras are meant to be temporary. What have you heard about that? Because I am under the impression that in 2010, some of the cameras that were installed are still there.
Right. So the city says that these surveillance cameras for the World Cup are going to be temporary. They will be turned off after the tournament ends. But you're right. Privacy advocates often point to something that they call creep. And this is where surveillance introduced for a specific purpose sticks around after that purpose has passed. And that surveillance quietly becomes part of everyday life, becomes part of the everyday background. I asked the city about what happened to the nearly 1,000 temporary cameras set up for the 2010 Olympics. 90 of those cameras were installed by the city of Vancouver, and the city tells me none of them continue to operate today. However, around 900 were installed by the RCMP-led Olympic security team, and I do not have an answer yet on whether those cameras are still operating. Looking at the 2026 World Cup, again, the host committee tells me they do not have a specific date for removal, but that they will be turned off after the tournament.
And do we know who's paying for these, by the way? Because these signs are being put up by the City of Vancouver. They have the City of Vancouver logo on them.
Yes, and so according to the Vancouver host city agreement that it struck with FIFA, Vancouver is on the hook for these costs.
Okay, so these are meant to be temporary. We talked about that. How much do people in Vancouver actually care about this?
Right. So Zamir and I walked around downtown Vancouver to ask people about that. I spoke to one woman from Toronto who said she feels safer when there's extra security around. I asked if she'd speak on camera with me, but she declined. And given that this story is about cameras, I said, that's fine. I won't try to encourage you further. But Zamir and I did speak to a few willing people outside the Vancouver Art Gallery. Take a listen.
I think that living in Canada and first world countries, you kind of expect the government to try and keep you safe. So if the surveillance is used for the safety of people around here, I think that's okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm okay. It's like a biggest event. It's like a World Cup. So yeah, it should be for other people, for the athletes coming in here. And also speaking for Vancouver, like people can come in here, feel safe, and and more than welcome.
I feel like there's a line that we should not cross between secure and getting spy. We already spy on AI, Instagram, Facebook, everywhere you go on the internet already. Plus the camera and AI, bro, I'm really scared.
Those were the voices of some people in Vancouver. A couple told us there that they feel comfortable with extra surveillance. The final person told us that they do wonder about the trade-off between security and privacy. And, maybe that's a debate we don't hear as much about anymore. Like millions of people happily post to social media about where they are, who they're with, what's in their Spotify Wrapped, how many kilometers they ran and where they ran it. But anyways, Vancouver is getting 200 cameras. They're being installed right now for testing ahead of the tournament. The city says they will be used strictly for public safety, and we'll bring you more updates.